just because in that fragment, in that snapshot, in that slither, all we see is some humans with stone tools in caves, doesn't mean that nothing else was happening. So,
well, a good piece of evidence to that would point in that direction is Egypt. Because Egypt, even if you accept the conventional timeline of Egypt, which is 2,500 BC for the Great Pyramid, go look at the rest of the world at 2,500 BC. You don't see anything like that. Nothing even close.
Yeah, they were clearly, even if you kind of look at the conventional model of history, the ancient Egyptians were wildly ahead of everyone else.
Everyone.
It's just so weird. It's like,
so weird.
And that's if you, and the conventional model doesn't really give us any explanations of how they were doing what they were doing.
And they arrogantly dismiss any other explanations, which is really weird. When you're talking about these immense structures that are baffling.
Yeah.
Absolutely baffling to anybody who's being honest.
Yeah.
What is your take on these Italian researchers that are looking at the tomography and they're looking at these things that they believe are underneath the Great Pyramid and some other structures in Egypt?
Yeah, the kind the what's it called, like SARS Toppler. I mean, I don't know. I'm always a little bit suspicious when you make sensationalist claims with new technology, and that doesn't mean it's wrong. That just kind of
you
gets
have to be suspicious because it's bonkers.
It's
I mean, if
crazy.
what they're saying is 2 kilometers deep underneath the Great Pyramid, there's structures, and there's hundreds of meters of these pylons, these pillars that are in uniform positions with some sort of a coil wrapped around them. Like, what is that? What is that real? And they reproduce it in multiple different scans, but I don't know what they're seeing. I don't understand the technology, understand where the errors could be, like what could possibly cause it to glitch like that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I would love it to be true, obviously, because,
I would love it.
Can you imagine?
That's the problem. The problem is the same problem that I have with UFOs and everything else.
You want it to be true.
100%. So it really clouds my judgment. And then I have to get my, analytical mind to say, shut up.
Yeah.
Let's look at this honestly.
But I mean, I think, there's definitely something below the Giza Plateau. Like, that's always been written about in ancient sources, and these kind of scans, and then people you have stories of people going down into labyrinths that aren't, accepted by Egyptology. And there's definitely massive mystery surrounding Giza and the construction of the pyramids and what could potentially be below the pyramids. And this kind of new pyramid scan project has the potential, I think, to, make big progress in understanding what is below Giza. But I don't know, until there's better data out there, I'm not going to, jump to any conclusions and declare that this is like evidence of, a lost advanced technology civilization or anything
No,
like that.
you can't. But I am so excited about just the possibility that they're right. Because if they are right, that's the greatest monkey wrench into history that's ever existed. Because explain away that.
Yeah.
With ancient people with stone tools or copper. Like, explain that away.
They'd probably try, mate, because it already doesn't make sense. Their explanation for the construction of the pyramids being wooden sledges and stone chisels or whatever they say, it already doesn't make sense. It's already so ridiculous that I wouldn't even be surprised if they tried to explain away these.
It'll discredit them, because the problem is if it does indicate that the pyramid is something other than a tomb,
there's not. I don't even see any evidence that the Great Pyramid at Giza. I mean, what's the evidence that was a tomb? I mean, I don't think they've ever found a body in there.
No.
It's just a chamber which they've called the King's Chamber.
Right.
I mean, I'm not an expert in ancient Egypt by any respect, but it's always baffled me that they're so determined that the pyramids are tombs just because some later pyramids have had, mummies and pharaohs and sarcophagi found inside them. But
that doesn't mean anything, and that doesn't mean that they built it. That also could mean that the pharaoh decided that it was his and wanted to be buried inside of it, and it had existed for thousands of years before they ever even got there.
And you find bodies in buildings today, and that doesn't mean the purpose of that building was to be a tomb.
Right.
It's just someone's buried there, so someone, as you say,
it's a weird assumption. It's a very weird assumption. And did you ever read any Christopher
Dunn,
Christopher Dunn's work? Yes.
I know a bit. I haven't read his book, but I know a bit about it. And it's interesting. I mean, he's like a serious guy, isn't he? He's like
an engineer.
Exactly. And he has quite serious theories that...
He thinks it's a power plant.
Yeah, which would be crazy, wouldn't it?
Especially if you add into that the Graham Hancock's ideas and some of these other people's ideas that perhaps some of these structures are far older
Well, the kind of Orion correlation and the Sphinx.
Also, the fact that the deeper you go into the sand, the more sophisticated the building techniques are.
Yeah.
That gets weird. Like larger stones, like what happened?
The whole of like ancient Egypt and the Sahara Desert in general just doesn't make sense to me, because when you look at the Sahara Desert and the fact that it was green for 9,000 years and then it stopped being green at precisely the time that we're told ancient Egypt emerged, well, that doesn't make sense. That defies how civilization works. Why would a civilization only emerge after the climate got worse? Like,
right.
That doesn't make sense at all. Like,
and so little research done in sub-Saharan Africa, where they've actually gone into the ground and done like large-scale research of these immense areas.
Nothing. The Sahara Desert is vast and obviously covered in sand and extremely hot, extremely difficult to survey, politically unstable, and there's basically been no archaeological work done across the whole. And the Sahara Desert is massive. It's like the whole of North Africa, right down to,
right.
Like, I mean, it's massive, and
you could fit the United States in there.
You could fit anything in there, like a whole like preceding civilization for 9,000 years leading up to ancient Egypt. Like, it's the perfect place. It's right by Mesopotamia. It's right by Egypt. And yet we have this blank spot for the 9,000 years before the development of civilization, which is kind of also the gap between, I mean, it's a little bit less than this, but the gap between Göbekli Tepe and the birth of civilization. We have this huge area which would have been perfect for civilization, full of rivers, lakes, grasslands, perfect climate, and it's just missing.
Also, abundant resources where they could establish a stable civilization because they had so much food and they weren't being attacked, so they could kind of set up shop and figure some things out.
Yeah.
Over a long period of time.
Yeah. So my theory is that things were happening in the Sahara Desert when it was green, in the Green Sahara, for those 9,000 years. And then because it was really quick, that's what I don't think people realize, is that when the Sahara Desert turned from, you know, green, lush paradise, whatever you want to call it, to a desert, it was like a few centuries. It's called rapid desertification, and it flipped, not overnight, obviously, but in a few centuries compared to 9,000 years is a rapid change. And for any kind of culture that was living there, you wouldn't have noticed it straight away, but in 50 years, you'd be like, fuck, it's getting a bit hot here. You know what I mean? Like, shit is going on. And then so I think maybe people migrated to the last stretch of green that was still available to them, which was the Nile River. And then the kind of survivors or the migratory populations developed around the Nile River, and using the kind of experience and knowledge that they had from their lives and the kind of history of their cultures in the Green Sahara period, that is what led to ancient Egypt. I mean, that's just a
Well, it's
theory,
also just an assumption that ancient Egypt didn't exist alongside that,
That's true,
or even previous to that. Which is also possible, especially when you consider what Robert Schoch thinks about the erosion, the water erosion in the Temple of the Sphinx.
Yeah, the kind of explanation away of that also never made sense to me, that it's wind and sand, because when you see pictures of the Sphinx, even from when they kind of found it in Napoleonic times, it's buried in sand.
Right.
And there's records from the Egyptians themselves who, excavated it effectively because it was covered in sand. So if it quickly gets covered in sand, how could it be eroded by wind and sand if it doesn't take very long for it to, kind of get filled up with sand? Then how does wind and sand erosion even count? I've never seen anyone kind of explain that away.
Well, it's the walls that are the most fascinating to me, because the deep fissures that clearly look like rainfall. It looks like something that water does over thousands of years.
Yeah.
And when
There's those whales that were the Valley of the Whales. It's just about, I don't know how many miles south, but it's south of Cairo.
That's bonkers too.
Yeah.
That's crazy. They find
Hundreds of whales.
Hundreds of whales in the desert. That's so great. Look at that image. That's so nuts. That is so nuts.
Some of them had teeth and toes.
So crazy. So crazy. And then it makes you wonder, like, how did those bones survive? Like, why are they there? Like, how quickly did they die? How quickly did they get covered up by sediment that they could find them all these years later? Because that's the weird thing about fossils and bones in general, is that most of them you're never going to find because they get eaten, they deteriorate, they're gone. Like, it's very difficult to make a fossil. When you think about our, quote unquote fossil record, it's really weird because it's hard to make a fossil.
Yeah.
So we're dealing with a very small amount of beings that get turned into a fossil. And that is what we're using as our understanding of like life.
Yeah, yeah.
It's weird.
It is weird. It is
Because
weird.
it's so limited.
I'm not sure do you know when the Sahara was covered in water? I'm not even sure when that was. I mean, some people say that there's like a mass flood during the kind of Younger Dryas period, which I think is...
I think they're talking about millions of years ago for these bones.
Yeah.
How old are these whale bones supposed to be? But I think millions of years ago, it's assumed that it was completely underwater, right? So are we talking like Pangea times? Like, what are we talking about?
I don't know. But even not too long ago, like, you know, kind of 12,000 years ago, whatever, they had these massive river systems, like the Tamanrasset River system.
Here it is.
40 million years old.
Yeah.
40 million years old.
But I don't know about the whales.
Oh my God.
Primitive whales.
Primitive whales documenting, how do you say that word? Cetacean? How do you say that word? Cetacean transition? Is that how you say it?
I don't know.
Cetacean transition to marine life, sauridians and reptiles, as well as shark teeth from the Genaham Formation 40 to 41 million years ago. The strata in, I don't say that either, Wad al-Hitan belongs to Middle Eocene epoch, and it contains extensive vertebrate fossils within a 200-kilometer area. Fossils are present in high numbers and often show excellent quality of preservation. The most conspicuous fossils are skeletons and bones of whales and sea cows.
What's a sea cow?
I don't know, man.
What's a manatee?
You ever see the precursor to whales, like where whales came from?
No, where did they come from?
It was an ancient animal that was like almost like a hooved wolf.
What, sea animal?
No,
Oh, you mean,
it was
so they
a
were...
land animal. That's why they breathe air.
Oh, of course, they're mammals, aren't they?
Yeah.
That's weird.
It's super weird. It's super weird. It was some animal that supposedly lived on land and is real freaky looking, almost kind of like dog-like.
Yeah.
And that thing eventually
Became a
said,
whale.
I just like swimming.
I'm going to go back
And
into
then
the
one
sea.
day it said, I'm never going back to the land. It's filled with assholes. I'm just going to live out here in the ocean where all you have to contend with is sharks.
This article calls it the god of death whale.
Wow, that's what it looked like. That's what it looked like.
That's pretty terrifying.
But there's some images of it on land, some depictions. Yeah, that's what it looked like. That freaky thing was what whales came from. That thing walked around the ground and then eventually said,
If it's 40 million years ago, is that what those skeletons are then? Maybe.
Interesting. Some of them maybe, right? Because they do know that thing. It was when whales walked in Egypt. Wow. I was watching, I don't remember whose podcast it was. I wish I could remember. But they were talking to some guy that found definitive evidence of dinosaurs in Egypt. So if you go back far enough, there were dinosaurs living in that part of the world as well. What's that one image you just saw right there with the mouth open? Yeah, that one. That's crazy looking. Prehistoric whale ancestor. Look at that thing. Whoa. That's crazy.
Here's the sea cows.
What?
This image says a prehistoric sea cow was killed by a prehistoric croc.
Wow.
Then eaten by a tiger shark, but I don't know.
Boy. Life is hard where there's no doors. That's the problem with the ocean. There's no doors. There's nowhere to hide.
Yeah,
So it's just constant chaos. It is just constant things eating things in this 3D space where they can go up and down and side to side. And
That's just nature, isn't it, man?
It
Everyone's
is.
just killing everything else, and
yes,
we made it.
but we figured out doors.
We did.
We figured out walls and doors, and that changed the game.
But when did we do that, Joe? That's the question.
That is the
because
question.
a lot of people would claim to think, and the kind of consensus always is that we didn't do that until 12,000 years ago. We didn't settle down and form permanent communities until the Neolithic Revolution. And I think that's one of the major paradigms, if you like, that we have regarding our past that simply doesn't make sense in light of new evidence. And
So what I see in the Amazon is traces of a lost science, a scientific mindset. Can I show some pictures of these geoglyphs?
Please.
We have to hook up the magical
HDMI.
And I'll just show a few slides of them. I forget which side the HDMI is in. I think it's in that side.
Careful with the water.
Yeah.
Got it?
Okay. Are we on screen?
We will be momentarily. Here we go.
Yeah, so this shows the Amazon, 6.7 million square kilometers. There's still 5.5 million left covered by rainforest. That's bigger than the entire subcontinent of India. And hardly any archaeology has been done. And the archaeology that is being done is fascinating. And it's particularly in the state of Acre, in the southwest of Brazil, that we're seeing these extraordinary geoglyphs. Now, I'm on the left there. That's Martti Paasonen from the University of Helsinki, and that is Fabio Filho, who's the LiDAR expert, and that's Alceu Ranzi, who's a Brazilian geographer and archaeologist. And we're looking at the latest LiDAR discoveries, and there I'm about to take off in a plane with these two guys. It was just incredible to fly over there. I've flown over the Nazca lines many times, but to fly over this and to see these huge earthworks on a scale of hundreds of meters sitting there, often encroached on by farms, was very, very, very exciting.
And what's the conventional explanation for these things?
There is no conventional explanation because really it's only begun to be studied. Alceu first noticed them on an overflight more than 20 years ago, but it's only relatively recently that they've started to get the funding. And I want to pay tribute to Eugene Jong, who is a philanthropist who has provided funding for these guys to continue their work, and who's also provided funding to the Comet Research Group, and who's also provided funding for the DMT research that's being done at UCSD.
What's his name?
Eugene Jong. He's a brilliant
Eugene
guy.
Jong.
J-H-O-N-G. He's a brilliant philanthropist, and he's so open-minded, and he's looking to support research in areas that the mainstream just won't touch.
That's amazing.
So
Good
we're looking at
him.
Fazenda Cipoal here, where we have an octagon with rounded corners. And then this is Santa's shot of the same place. And you can see what's going on. You see the smoke in the background there? Mm-hmm. That's the Amazon burning. That's settlers clearing the Amazon to create more farms. But in the foreground, we have this enormous geometrical event, which is a huge oval surrounding a square.
And did they find this once they started clearing? Is that when this...
This was found as a result of the clearances. That's how it became... Archaeologists became aware that these things exist.
So before that, this was completely covered with trees?
Completely covered with rainforest. It was only it's a sort of mixed blessing or mixed curse, if you like, because the clearances made it possible for us to know that these things exist. But the clearances ultimately will destroy the entire Amazon if they're allowed to continue. Jacosá, on the left, a square surrounding a circle. And here's a couple of Santa's shots of Jacosá. You can see there's a large square earthwork and a circle in it. That's almost, not quite, but almost like the Greek exercise of squaring the circle. It's like geometrical exercises are taking place here in the Amazon. Again, a square with these curious scallops cut into the side of it, and a circle. There's just so much of this stuff. Taquino, absolutely giant geoglyph, and these things really, on the old view of the Amazon, shouldn't exist. They involve enormous expenditure of effort. Creating these earthworks is a huge job. If there was a lot of stone in the Amazon, I think we'd see stone circles on them as well. There's one place further north called Rego Grande where there is an earthwork with a stone circle in it because stone is locally available.
So do you think this was the base of a structure? Like, what is the speculation?
No, I don't think so. I've talked to indigenous people there who still respect and revere them. And they say that they were for shamanic journeying, that the population would gather within them, that there would be certain areas that might be reserved for the shamans. For example, the square on the left, those two cut out areas, top left and right of that square, it suggested that shamans were in there and the rest of the population were in the other area, and they were undertaking visionary journeys, perhaps using ayahuasca. Of course, the Amazonian peoples are experts in the properties of indigenous plants.
So this is their folklore, or this is their story?
Yes, this is the story of indigenous
so that's
indigenous
what they
people.
say,
I talked to an Apurina elder, and he said We don't know exactly why these places were made. They were made so long ago, but we respect them, we revere them, and we think that they were used by shamans in the distant past.
So they were aware of them before the clearing and everything?
They were aware of them before the clearing, and
Did
they
use
revered them. Yes, they used them, and they still have community gatherings in them. No, they weren't a base for structures. I'm drawing attention here to Severino Calazans, this large square on the left there, which has coincidentally the same footprint as the Great Pyramid of Giza. It just shows you the size of that enormous earthwork. But it's a mystery. More work needs to be done, and much more needs to be surveyed. And thanks to LiDAR, that can be done non-invasively. We can spot these things. Very small teams can go in and do a bit of excavation there and figure out what was going on. I think the story is going to go back further and further into the past.
Is there any evidence of wood structures? Like, did they make buildings out of wood back then?
Not that I'm aware of.
When did people start using wood as a structure?
I think you can trace wood back as a structure hundreds of thousands of years.
But when did they start using it in, like, if you see like the ancient Mayan civilizations, what you find in the Amazon, you don't find ancient wood structures, do you?
I think that's largely an artifact of the fact that wood doesn't preserve very well.
Right. So how do we know that there weren't wood structures?
There may well have been
over these.
There may well have been, which have just rotted away and gone. There may well have been wooden structures there.
Because it kind of looks like foundations.
It does look like foundations, and it's just a very weird thing. But I think the main point is
someone made it.
Someone made it, and it involved a very large amount of organized labor in order to make it. There had to be the will and the intent in order to do that. It's interesting that the patterns are geometrical.
And are they geometrical, like with the perfect length? And
yes,
like
they're very
match up with each other?
They're very, very good. Fazenda Pirana and Severino Calazans are both aligned to true astronomical north. That's different from compass north. That requires astronomy. You can't get true north without using astronomy. So this tells us not only was there a culture that was capable of creating large-scale public projects, but also they had astronomers amongst them.
Wow.
It's a good mystery. The other thing is the geometrical patterns are very common experience in ayahuasca visions in altered states of consciousness. Our culture tends to despise altered states of consciousness, although fortunately that's changing. But in the Amazon and many indigenous cultures, they're regarded as extremely important, that we can't confine ourselves to the everyday wide-awake state of consciousness that requires us to interface with the physical world. There are other states of consciousness which are also valuable and which bring teachings. And it's just one of those facts that most people who drink ayahuasca, most of the time, at some point will experience geometrical visions. So there's a question: is there a connection here between the use of ayahuasca and the geometrical patterns? There's a huge rock wall has been found in the Colombian Amazon, Serra de la Lindosa, which I'm hoping to get to this year. 8 kilometers long, covered in rock paintings. The rock paintings are dated more than 12,000 years old. They show extinct megafauna. They show giant sloths which went extinct during the Younger Dryas, for example. And they also show the kind of entities that are seen in ayahuasca visions. They show the same sort of patterns, the same geometric patterns that are seen in ayahuasca. So there's a sense that...
Do you have any images of this place?
Serra de la Lindosa.
You're connected to the...
Yeah, I don't have images of La Lindosa on here.
Oh, maybe you could Google it.
But if
or give the plug back
I'll
to
take
Jamie.
the plug back. I was trying to Google it and I didn't find anything. And I might have spelled or guessed wrong on Serra.
How do you spell it?
La Lindosa.
La Lindosa?
Yeah. Let me just...
I got it.
You got it?
Yeah.
You're going to have to give him the cord real quick, and then he'll give it back to you.
Okay. There you go. It's literally an 8-kilometer Sistine Chapel in the Colombian Amazon. That's the other thing. I mentioned there's not a lot of rock in the Amazon. Where there is rock, they used it. There's rock paintings all over the Amazon where rock is available. These kind of things. Yeah, that's it. These are characteristic of ayahuasca visions, but in this case, they're more than 12,000 years old. Now, does that prove they were using ayahuasca 12,000 years ago? No. But
that's very similar to like a tryptamine vision, though.
Totally. It does suggest that some tryptamine was being accessed at that time and resulting in these visionary images.
Boy, they shitty drawers, weren't they? Their drawing was terrible.
But bear in mind that they're clambering 100 feet up a sheer cliff in order to
do a better job. It's ridiculous.
Create these paintings.
The people were so fat. Are those people or sea turtles? What are those things? It's really interesting to see. So this is 11,000, how old?
12,000.
12,000 plus?
Yeah, 12,000 plus years old.
It's interesting because if you see the paintings that they found in that cave in France, those are 30 plus thousand years old.
Oh, yeah. There's paintings in France. If you go to Chauvet, you're looking 36,000 years old.
Can you go to those, Jamie?
Hollenstein-Stadel in Germany.
That's that amazing Werner Herzog documentary.
They often have...
I think was the Cave of Dreams.
Cave of Dreams,
yes.
Yeah. They often have...
That.
We're looking at Lascaux. Hang on the... Yeah, we're looking at Lascaux there. The bull painting there is interesting.
Were better artists.
They were.
They were.
I have to confess,
they were quite a bit better.
This art is very good. If you go, Jamie, if you go to the NPR, the painting of a bull, one step left from where you are, that one. This is very interesting. There has been an argument made by a couple of astronomers that what is depicted there is the constellation of Taurus, and that in itself is heresy, because archaeologists who want to give everything to the Greeks say that it was the Greeks who invented the constellations of the zodiac, and not shown.
Why do they think that represents the constellation?
Because of the 6 little dots, which are not, I think, on the head. I think they're somewhere behind, not in this picture, which is often how the Pleiades are seen. They're seen. Actually, there are 7 Pleiades, but often to the naked eye you see 6. And the positioning of the Pleiades in relation to the constellation of Taurus is the basis for that argument. It could be. I'm not sure. It's so long since I've looked at this, but I know that there are six dots there. So this cave art was going on all around the world. It's found that some of the oldest art has been found in Indonesia.
Here it is. Here's the.
Yeah, there's the Pleiades. The whole argument about the Pleiades. It's those dots, exactly. The ones you pointed to above the back of the bull. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That is how the Pleiades are often seen with the naked eye.
Can you go back to the other image? Yeah. Wow.
That's it's an argument. It's not accepted by mainstream archaeology because of their narrative, which is that the discovery of the constellations of the zodiac is given to the Greeks or perhaps to the Mesopotamians before the Greeks. It's not thought that any human culture could have noticed the constellations of the zodiac before that, and that's really absurd because the constellations of the zodiac are on the path of the sun. The sun rises against the background of a different constellation every month. And how would the ancients have missed that, especially since the skies were an ever-present phenomenon to them in a way that they are not to us.
Right.
We're cut off from the skies by light pollution, but the ancients were not.
What a fascinating concept that they knew about the constellations 30+ thousand years ago.
Yeah, and I believe they did. And we see that again in Göbekli Tepe, in Pillar 43 in Enclosure D. You see a constellation that we recognize as Sagittarius.